can assist you. The Hawks did a real good.
Hi, I'm Eric Lindros, and if you play contact sports, you need to understand that there's a possibility you could get a concussion. Most athletes don't like to talk about concussions in a serious way, but the fact is, if you want to play a long career, have a healthy and productive life, you need to know the facts. When I started playing sports, everyone looked at concussions as very minor injuries. They were just getting your bell rung. If you got your bell rung, you shrugged it off and continued to play. There was actually an element of humor involved in watching someone have difficulty getting off the ice. Now we know concussions are not a laughing matter. Concussions are serious injuries. We need to pay attention to the risks and consequences of these invisible injuries. I've asked some of my friends, leading concussion experts, and a few athletes you may recognize, to give you a crash course in concussions. Pay attention, as no matter which sport you play, this information may save your career and help your quality of life.
Concussion comes from the Latin word concussus, and that means violently shake, because the brain is quite violently shaken inside the skull.
It doesn't have to be a head-on collision. It could be a shoulder-on-shoulder.
I think a lot of players, when I played, thought you have to be knocked out, you have to be, unconscious, and that's not the case. Any alteration to mental alertness is considered a concussion. So if you're blacked out for a second or you get what we call a ding now, that is considered a concussion. Tell the doctor, tell the coach. One of the things about concussions too, it doesn't matter, it doesn't segregate with size or strength. I know guys like Eric Lindros and Jeff Bukaboom, guys 6'5", big guys, tough guys. Nick Kiprios, it doesn't distinguish between guys that are big or small. Head injuries can occur to anybody, whether you're a big lineman on a football team or whether you're a 5'9" centerman who's skating around out there. The brain is the brain. Impacts are impacts.
If in doubt, sit them out.
Signs and symptoms of concussion are really varied, and it's important to recognize that not only are they varied, but they can change over time. Typically what happens is a player will feel stunned, somewhat confused, a bit disoriented. They may see some stars, they may develop a headache, they may develop nausea. When they come off to the sideline, they may describe that the lights are too bright, they have light sensitivity, they have difficulty with sound, loud noises can bother them. Sometimes players have significant difficulties with balance.
You're just not sharp. Your hand-eye coordination's off. Your internal battery seems like it's running on half full.
Well, you're real groggy. You normally have a migraine or a real bad headache, almost like a hungover feeling. You're not yourself. You're nauseous a little bit. You're really just out of it. I became very emotional, depressed, angry. You're just not yourself.
The best marker of the severity of a concussion is not exclusively how many symptoms or how severe they are, but mostly how long they last, although all three are important.
If in doubt, sit it out.
In summary, concussion symptoms are varied and can be grouped into 4 categories. Physical symptoms, including headache, dizziness, and nausea. Cognitive symptoms, including problems with memory, attention, and feeling slowed down. Emotional symptoms, such as sadness, irritability, and feeling nervous. And finally, problems with sleeping.
It could take one guy two very bad hits or one extremely bad hit, or it could take 10 hits, or in some cases, Al Toon, I think 11 or 12. And the scary thing about it is there is no crystal ball at how many numbers. Make sure when it does happen to you, you take the necessary precautions and don't go back until you've healed 100%.
The whole idea of playing is to have fun, is it not? It's the element there is to be enjoying what you're doing. It should not be something where people are pushed to the limits and questioned if they're not feeling well. Are you not good enough? Are you not strong enough to play this game? you know, if someone's not feeling right, that's the time to sit out.
The symptoms are telling you something's wrong. Get it looked at. You wouldn't tell a player who has got massive swelling in his knee to continue to play.
Playing through injuries is an aspect of pro sports, all sports, that will always be around. I question, when do you sacrifice your brain? It's one thing to play, you know, with injuries to your shoulders, your knees, you know, cracked ribs.
It's your livelihood and your life, and if you're going to be affected for this 10, 15 years after your sport, then it's not worth it.
If in doubt, sit them out.
I think with concussion, there are age differences. I think we're concerned that our young athletes may recover more slowly than our adult athletes from the same concussion. And we're also concerned that young athletes may be more easily concussed than adult athletes. So on both scores, we're a bit more conservative with our young athletes than we are perhaps with an adult.
You need to be smart, you need to be honest, you need to tell someone.
Athletes inherently want to play, and I think they oftentimes will minimize their symptoms.
You have to be very honest with yourself. You've got one brain and it's got to last you your life.
If in doubt, sit out.
If a player is symptomatic, they should not be playing at all. That player should be sat until that player is symptom-free, both at rest and when we physically exert them.
One of the things that's important is rest. So not only physical rest, but also mental rest. And I think we sometimes minimize, you know, what a kid will oftentimes go home and watch TV or start using the computer, and things like that are considered taxing. So you want to try to avoid some of those things. It's also important to avoid alcohol, avoid other types of medications or drugs that would affect your brain.
If in doubt, sit them out.
Once you have a concussion, yeah, you need to be looked at. You need to be checked out. I think it's best to go to someone that deals directly and has a long history in dealing with sports-related concussions.
I think is important. Being able to look in their eyes and just get a sense that they're dazed, they're confused, they're having difficulty. When you ask them questions, they're slow to respond. You can tell that it's just taking them a little bit of time for them to answer your questions.
You want to try to ask simple questions. What's the score of the game? Who did we play last week? What did you have for breakfast? A coach that's unsure as to whether or not a concussion has occurred should always err on the side of caution. Remove that athlete from participation until they can be absolutely certain that he or she is ready to return to play.
We know that when a player has a brain injury, that they tend to have difficulties with memory, particularly short-term memory. They have difficulty with how quickly they process information, how well they can think through problems, how well they can analyze problems, and how they put those all together. We know that those different aspects of brain functioning are affected in concussion. So as neuropsychologists, people who study brain behavior relationships, we're able to assess or take a look at how the brain is functioning by looking at these various ways that the brain functions.
And so oftentimes the benefit of neurocognitive testing is that it just gives you a little more, you know, one more piece of the puzzle, one more tool in your toolbox.
The cognitive testing, the baseline testing, is so critical and so important. So you have to really, really, really go into those baseline testing and cognitive testing and give everything you have, because you don't want to mess around with your brain.
In a typical concussion management program, there is an initial preseason baseline evaluation which may contain neuropsychological and balance testing. After an injury occurs, the athlete is evaluated on the sideline or in the locker room for signs of concussions. If a concussion is diagnosed, the athlete is usually kept out of play until all symptoms have cleared. They are then evaluated again with neuropsychological, balance, and other testing as needed. The test results are compared to the baseline tests in order to help determine whether the athlete is ready to play.
Well, the pressure to play, the pressure of losing your job, other players waiting in the wings to kind of come over and come in and take your position. So there's a little bit of a a lot of pressure for the player to get back out on the ice as quick as possible, the football field or whatever, so he doesn't lose his job and he doesn't lose his reputation as being a tough player. But nowadays it's everybody'd rather be much more smarter than tougher.
We're all going to get hit, and most of us at some time or another are going to get some kind of an injury, a head injury, headache, and concussion. But the real key is when it does happen, to make sure you don't go back too soon and make sure you're 100% healed and you're cleared by the doctors and you have no symptoms and your cognitive testing is fine.
So you have to educate the coaching staff that it's not okay to play with a headache, or that it's not okay to play if someone's had a concussion.
I think there's if any hesitation, and if you're not feeling right or something, you have some nagging headaches or affected by noise and light, I think that's one of the first signs I had, and that's something that just puts up warning flags like, hey, take a break, get it checked out, and get the rest.
Just be safe.
And if you're in doubt, you really need to sit them out.
So there you have it, a quick look at Concussions 101. Keep in mind that if these injuries aren't managed and identified, the symptoms can last longer than you expect. And while rare, a concussion you get now could have long-term lasting effects that can be with you the rest of your life. Chances are you will have a concussion if you play long enough. Now you know the signs and symptoms, who to turn to for help, what to expect when it's safe to play. Injury is a risk in any sport, but today we know more information than ever before. Let's use the science to our benefit. Take what you've learned today and remember it. In the end, it's your life and you don't play forever.